Back, and we have Ryan here from our NutriMed team. Ryan, how was your weekend? How was your weekend? We saw the lance deeply embedded in the Hildebeest by the Dragon Slayer Trump. And now, of course, we're here to slay the dragon of unwellness and what we call an inappropriate and stupidly organized healthcare system. We talked about this with our peripheral testing with Jim Gersey in the top of the second hour. We have the tools to survive. You know, like they have the tools to survive with that Donald Fagen song, you know, The Last Call to the Last Mall. Those tools are NutriMeds. You want to reach for NutriMeds when your epigenetics are all screwed up, your nutrition's screwed up, your genes are playing games with you. I call games of we call genetic roulette, where the chambers are loaded with lots of bad gene bullets, and they're spinning the chamber and saying, you know what? We're not going to put one bad bullet in the chamber. We're going to put 5. There's only one chamber where you're not going to blow your head off. And people now are eating crappy food, drinking crappy water, having crappy lifestyle, and taking toxic polypharmacy that's going to cause even more nutritional deficiencies or new illnesses. And they wonder why, with 5 chambers loaded with bad bullets, their health is going down the toilet because they can actually see it circulating the bowl. I'm going to do it again. I want you to kind of pick out a few nutrients that you think are stellar, and then we'll kind of expand on that. How's that? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, Dr. Bill, thanks for having me on. I think that no matter who you are, a platform that everybody should build off of is Vitamineral Max. The reason for that is, these micronutrient deficiencies that happen because our food supply is devoid of nutrition like it has been in the past. Even when you try to eat organic, getting the adequate amounts into your body is harder and harder. And the fact is, there's a lot of people that aren't feeling quite right because they don't even have just some of the basic active nutrients into their body that's going to make everything work like it should. The enzymatic processes work like it should. But Vitamineral Max is very special. Quick release veggie caps. You've got activated complex of B vitamins in there. You've got albion chelated minerals for maximizing absorption. So to me, if you're taking a multivitamin, you really got to consider the Vitamineral Max formulation.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I think is most interesting is the fact that we have a lot of people that don't understand that even a lot of the drugs now, for example, birth control pill causes vitamin B deficiency states, doesn't it?
Right.
And that's been known by the like for 3 decades. Or stress will do it. And of course, a lot of drugs will actually cause deficiency states too. Yep. Diuretics will make you deficient of potassium, magnesium, but also trace elements. And if your soil and your food contains no selenium, chromium, vanadium, you're going to have oxidative stress and you're going to turn diabetic. Simply by deficiency states that will make the GLUT4 transporter not work, or your superoxide dismutase not work to protect your blood vessel walls from oxidative stress. So, by the way, these nutrients are in our Minerals Plus and our Vitamineral Max in our drinks, which means if you don't like the pills, get the drinks. Now, so that I call the twin to contain these extra minerals is Minerals Plus. And the Vitamineral Max center covers pretty well all the bases. The Minerals Plus kind of amps it up on neurotransmitter support for diabetes, neurotransmitter conversion for mood and memory, detoxification and protection against oxidative stress. So it covers a whole lot of areas at higher amounts, even has a trace amount of lithium orotate in it to help stabilize parts of your brain that cause limbic seizures of the limbic system of nuclei that can lead to depression and anxiety. Even has things like molybdenum, which, by the way, is necessary for the tryptase and pyrrolase enzymes that convert amino acids to your neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin and melatonin. So you can't make melatonin without molybdenum. Do you think the average doctor knows that? Absolutely not. You can't even make nitric oxide. Do you know that you can't make nitric oxide in your blood vessel walls without molybdenum? Some of them can't even pronounce it, let alone know that it's necessary. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I remember having a discussion many years ago with a pediatric biochemist and researcher at the University of Colorado in Denver, and the pediatric intensive care unit. And he was touting the fact that they were putting a little nitric oxide in the chamber for premature babies that had pulmonary hypertension. And he realized that if you give a little molybdenum, their pulmonary hypertension and pulmonary wedge pressures drop on their ultrasound scan of their heart. I'm thinking, what about hypertension? Well, if you're taking our Minerals Plus and Vitamineral Max, you're contributing some of the minerals that are necessary so you can make nitric oxide. So when your heart pumps, the secondary wave that strikes the blood vessels causes a secondary pulsative compression wave, because your nitric oxide is one of the markers that your blood vessels will respond with a secondary peristaltic contraction that moves the blood down in your tissues and delivers nutrients and oxygen. People don't know these simple things, do they? You don't realize if you don't create the milieu for the tissues to act normal, they're not going to. And it's something as simple as having trace elements and major elements like magnesium. How much of the population do you think are magnesium deficiency, let alone all these trace elements? The vast majority. And they wonder why they don't have health. They have health issues like hypertension, decreased perfusion, depression, chronic fatigue, oxidative stress, and producing autoimmune diseases and cancer. Because if you stress the cell enough, you're going to get autoimmunity and cancer. You know, so that's simple, isn't it? Yeah. What's your next one you want to recommend, Ryan?
I think Vein Away is another formulation that a lot of people could have, you know, a lot of benefit from.
Yeah, and I will often combine the Vein Away with our Ultrathiamine B1. It is a specific nanoparticle size of Vein Away that's based on all the research, and we have the only version of that from a European supplier that's the right nanoparticle size of diosmin, which is from the Spanish orange, the white part underneath the skin. And this has an amazing effect on small vessels like in the eye, small vessels in the kidney like the loop of Henle, the vascular endothelium throughout the body, and both arteries and veins. So when we talk about Vein Away, it stops spider nevi, hemorrhoids. In fact, this is one of the best treatments for hemorrhoids. You take the gastroheal zinc carnosine orally, you take our colon cleanse to clean out your lower bowel, to make sure your bowel movements are working properly. And of course, all of our drinks and so on have soluble fibers, so they help to maintain normal bowel movement activity and health of the colonocytes, because the bacteria create with probiotics the short-chain fatty acids that nourish our bowel wall. But Vein Away is also hemorrhoid away. I mean, I could make this a long thing. You know, blindness away, hemorrhoid away, calcified artery away. I call it Vein Away because it specifically is going to work on spider nevi, varicose veins, etc. But it has all kinds of vascular effects, doesn't it?
Sure does, and it's people that are suffering in a lot of ways. You know, with regards to their legs aren't functioning like they should, heavy, restless. You know, as you're saying, varicosity, spider veins. There's a lot of reasons why this is occurring. A lot of warning lights, if you will, on the dashboard of life, kind of, you know, popping up. And this formulation is so powerful at being a powerful antioxidant and changing the direction of what's going on in the body.
I want to throw out one in terms of just a collective of the supplements that's very good for anti-aging. The first one I'd recommend for that is Anti-Age Max, which has got not only resveratrol, which is relatively short-acting, but dimethyl resveratrol, and it affects the SIRT1 gene that actually lengthens your telomeres. The telomeres are the primary thing that communicate with your cell membrane to regulate mineral content and turning on and off genes. Second thing is things to stop the cyclic oxygen and hydroperoxy radical and nitroperoxy. And that would include things like cell detox glutathione and gamma A+, and Nutritrala, carnosine D-link. But those are the three biggies. Gamma A+, cell detox glutathione, and Nutritrala. And the third area is superoxide dismutase, and we have, of course, the NutriDefense that has that. But you need the minerals and Minerals Plus in order to support SOD activity. And you can support SOD also with Cell Defense Plus, because people don't realize it not only turns off the cancer mother cells, it actually modulates cytokines in the cells and tissues to actually get rid of precancerous cell changes. So one of the things I tell people if they're getting sun exposure is use our pregnenolone cream and then put on top of it the curcumin cream, because any genetic damage caused by the sun, you can reverse it with the curcumin, and the pregnenolone will turn off the cytokines. So anti-aging, we had also our D-ribose for ATP, but also the drink. The Sports Energy Light supports ATP production, doesn't it? And then we have NADH tablets. So there's a whole range of things. The top ones that I would say would be we call Cell Detox Glutathione, Anti-Age Max, and NutriDefense. But there's the other ones I just mentioned. If you take those, they have an anti-aging effect and life extension, and they actually reverse mitochondrial deficiencies and reverse aging of the cells and tissues, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do.
Let's go through some of them. What's so special about cell detox glutathione? And of course, the minerals are also in Minerals Plus, so I usually recommend you take both.
Yeah, cell detox glutathione, what makes it profound is, one, it doesn't have any smell, any weird taste. It can be used, for anybody that's got a depletion level of glutathione, which is a master antioxidant in the body. And then it's just got a profound effect of being able to influence the red blood cell membranes of glutathione like you want, very quickly and effectively. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And when you do that, you preserve and protect mitochondrial damage. If you were actually to let's say you go to our clinic, we're postulating with Dr. Ron Klatz that we're going to start doing a big fundraising, probably either before or right after Christmas, to get this international research facility and anti-aging facility going in Encinitas, so it's the U.S. border, because you don't want the oversight of what we call very nasty regulatory idiots interfering. One of the things we'd have technologies for actually measuring your actual physical cellular aging. So we come up with a numerical number. So if you did, say, scanning electron microscopy, you look down at the mitochondria and say, either these are smacking mitochondria, or like, oh my God, your mitochondria look 20 years older than your chronological age. And as you start doing treatments like cell detox glutathione and anti-age max, and things that support superoxide dismutase and get rid of nitro and hydroperoxy radical like AMA+, you start looking at the mitochondria month after year and you say, wow, your mitochondria looked 84 when you're 64, now they look like you're 44. So you go and take a person and over 2 or 3 years, their actual cellular aging markers are actually reversing to a younger age. Do people think that aging is unidirectional? It's not. It's bidirectional, isn't it? So that's pretty exciting. The other one I use for vascular health is the use of ultrathymine B1, because the transketolase enzyme is very important for supporting not only kidney function, but the vascular health of the little vessels in your eye and the loop of Henle in your kidneys. Let's talk about the issue of what we call methylation pathways. And one of the first things you do with methylation is you're detoxing chemicals, but also removing heavy metals from your body. So we have bio-LVR, superfolate, pyromethyl B12, and the big daddy of all is the sammethyl. If you get toxic chemicals in your body and you're a firefighter, one of the things we would do even years ago is we would give people an intravenous bolus of not only high-dose power C, vitamin C, which, by the way, we now have the oral form, which is the salt, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium ascorbate with bioperin, but we give them a big bolus of sammethyl. And I remember the first case I saw some 30 years ago where the toxicologist came and said, look, we got a guy, a firefighter, who's heading into semi-coma from a toxic industrial exposure. We can put him on dialysis and put him into a controlled state of intubation for 24 to 36 hours. But if we give him a shot of S-adenosyl methionine, we can pull him literally out of this state by detoxing them instantly. And literally, I saw a person get a shot of sammethyl, and within minutes, they were actually pulling out of it. I mean, it was pretty mind-boggling to see someone detoxing that fast. So let's talk about this. S-adenosyl methionine, sammethyl, is nitrogen sachets. We also have the folic acid, B12, and deficiency state, which is related to B6 in bio-LVR. And I tell people, if one of the main polymorphisms that predisposes to diabetes is the B6 polymorphism, and the other two polymorphisms deal with chromium vanadium deficiency and lack of a GLUT4 transporter. These genes are what we call famine genes that are very common in, say, people from the Middle East and the Pima Indians in the Four Corners area, where it allowed them to maintain osmolality in the face of extreme heat and starvation. And, as you take things like our anti-age max, it turns on starvation genes that actually preserve you in a state of extreme stress, extreme heat, and extreme dehydration so you don't die. Let's talk about this for a minute, because these methylation pathway supports are really important for myelination of your brain, digestive enzymes, detoxification, and also getting rid of homocysteine, which is an independent risk factor to cook your brain and cook your blood vessel walls. So let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah, well, SAMe is something that most people have heard about. It's been used and studied for many, many decades for all kinds of different issues, including issues with liver, or issues studied with knee osteoarthritis, or or a study, as you're saying, like with mind, depression issues and stuff like that, becomes a valuable component in the body, because it's sort of like, to make the engine fire properly or the cell to regulate properly without the SAMe as a methyl donor, it just doesn't happen. And so this is a great material to have. And this is unique because, unlike most forms of SAMe, this is a powdered form. You can just drop it in the lining of your gum to help enhance the way that it's delivered into the body. And then it also has a very high level of active isomer. So unlike most SAMEs, where clinical studies are going to show 12 to 1,600 milligrams, because of the way this is delivered and its bioavailability, it's going to be a much lower need. So that means it becomes affordable and people can be capable of using it therapeutically.
Yeah, that's really neat, isn't it? Once you identify a problem, if you can actually fix the problem with an nutraceutical rather than a drug, it's really exciting to see how fast it works, too. One area that I really like, too, is what we call epigenetics, Cell Defense Plus. This new curcumin is really pretty darn amazing, isn't it? Why is it considered by many top experts in functional medicine, which goes beyond regular herbology? Because remember, regular herbology, they don't have these conversion technologies. Like, for example, we have a new version of prostate flow. We have a new version of gamma E plus with more tocotrienols and tocopherols than ever before any other company. We have a new version of this Cell Defense Plus, which is a form of curcumin that's dozens of times stronger than any other previous curcumin complex, that turns off cancer mother cells, that changes cytokines, that has epigenetic effects, that turns off autoimmunity and precancerous cell changes. What makes this so unusual about curcumin? Because I think the Cell Defense Plus is one of the biggest breakthroughs in decades in the area of functional medicine herbology. And it combines, you see, Western science and new delivery technologies with ancient herbology, but it's way more powerful than any other herbology that's been available through naturopath or, Chinese herbalists over the last number of centuries. These are new technologies, aren't they?
Yeah, the extraction process and keeping the material, ultra bioavailable to the body is critical, and that's what you get with this formulation of Cell Defense. So curcumin is often discussed. It's got obviously a tremendous range of what it's been shown to do in the body. It's one of the greatest natural compounds that people can use. But most forms are just simply not very bioavailable. And what's been very interesting lately is to understand that many companies tout highly bioavailable forms of curcumin, but unfortunately the data is a little misleading, where they actually will have people take the curcumin, pull their blood, and when they analyze it, they will actually spike it with an enzyme to release the curcumin. And so they're really giving artificial data for how bioavailable their curcumin is. And so with Cell Defense, that's not the case. There's no, spiking of data and using external enzymes, stuff that wouldn't be present in your blood in the first place, to show the benefit of curcumin being just absorbed. And it's got the essential oils already in it. Nothing needs to be added. It doesn't need to be in a unique delivery system for it to give the maximum benefit for the body.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Just amazing.
There is.
Back in just a moment. Stay right there. We have Ryan. If you have questions on health and our NutriMeds, do call in 800-313-9443. We'll be back in a moment. And lots of analysis and new protocols going up. And welcome back. So, Ryan, pick another nutraceutical. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some of our latest consultations for wellness, the ones that we've recently sent. And it's kind of amazing to me how, something like, for example, torn meniscus, Collagen Max, Tendon Mender, our NutriMeds Royal Jelly, and Mountain Red Velvet. Let's talk about Collagen Max and Tendon Mender for somebody that, like, for example, Anderson, who's one of the top $1 million paid Broncos. If he was taking these supplements, the chances of him rupturing his ACL, PCL would be significantly reduced, wouldn't it?
Well, certainly helps to nourish the body in every way possible, and these are areas that are getting into that unique areas that, for a lot of people, they're sensitive to injury. And when you do injure them, you need these to nourish you to help recover faster.
The problem is, you see, they did a study a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, of the NBA and NFL, and they actually just looked at the shoulder. And what they did is they actually did MRI scans and specific weighted ones to actually look for partial tears of the rotator cuff. There's 5 muscles that are in the rotator cuff, and ligaments are attached. And if you get a partial tear, you're in danger of actually during the play of the game or afterward, doing simple things around your home or working out, you can rupture them. And they found what percentage of the players, both NFL and NBA, had partial tears that could, during a period of extreme activity at sport or just working out, rupture. What percentage do you think?
Holy cow. I have no idea.
78%. 78% had a partial tear that, under the right circumstances, could rupture, whether it's a biceps tendon or triceps, or against the acromion, which may have a spur on it, so it's got a little razor blade ready to snap or cut across the tendon. 78%. This is based on orthopedic criteria that the orthopedic surgeon said I could put an arthroscope in there and do a surgical repair of a partial tear that could rupture. That's not good, is it? Now, if you do apply the same criteria to the knee, which even is more likely to rupture during a game like Gronkowski, if Gronk was my patient, I would be doing MRI scans on his knees really regularly to watch to make sure he doesn't get a partial tear because he's already had it repaired. Now, Gronk is a super football player, but his muscles and his size are greater than the tensile strength of his ligaments. And when you repair a ligament, how long does it take to receive 50% of the tensile strength of those ligaments once you've done a surgical repair and sutured it back together? What time period to retain 50% of the tendon strength? A year and a half. So unless you're taking supplements like collagen max and tendon bender, you're screwed and tattooed, because if you go back on the playing field and you're a big muscular guy, and remember, muscles build faster than tendon strength. And they did an interesting study on young males. They found that young males reach their maximum muscular strength between 25 and 28. They receive their maximum tensile strength of their ligaments and connective tissues at between 35 and 38. So this entire decade where you're stronger than your connective tissues can tolerate, and you're likely to get your permanent injuries that are going to screw you up. And the thing that people should realize is, if you're in a professional sport, if you had an experienced player that hasn't suffered an injury, they're going to have a long and illustrious career. If either by accident or by tensile strength of their tissues, either from genetics or poor diet or lack of nutrients like these nutrients, if I had all the pro athletes taking our supplements, they'd have a far lower rate of loss of their contracts, a far lower rate of loss of function, where they get perfectly screwed up, or ending up requiring joint replacements later on in their life because they've damaged joints and haven't fixed it. Thank you, Ryan. We'll see you again on Thursday.
Thank you, Dr. Bill.
Okay. And we're going to continue talking about consultations for wellness and much more. And when we return, your questions too are 800-313-9443. Any issue at all you want to raise, including the selection, I call it, not the elected in some of our consultations. One of the things was the calcified spurs and plantar fasciitis. I recommend Inflamex, which has both the woman's men formula and serapeptase. We also have seroflozyme, which you can take some extra serapeptase, very inexpensive. We have topical pregnenolone anti-inflammatory cream, and then I'd recommend Tendon Mender. Now, if you want to use technologies, you can use the micropulse and lumen photon. Lumen photon frequencies number 6 and 7 for reducing inflammation, and frequency 3 for regeneration. In terms of additional things to stop the cytokines in the tissue, Cell Defense Plus, 2 capsules 3 times a day, and full vitamin K2 to reverse the calcification of the plantar fascia. So that's a really good protocol. It works really well to reverse plantar fasciitis. There are no conventional therapies that will do what this will do, and you can actually see changes on soft X-ray changes occur to the tissues. Let's look at another interesting consultation here. Let's see. Okay, here we are. Yeah, sometimes I'll get people that have kind of spiritual questions, and they are talking about previous talks that we had about your Hebrew name and so on. I usually recommend that what you do there is, if you're interested in that, it requires a lot of time and prayer, a lot of research to actually do that, and I recommend you actually purchase a consult, at least one time unit. Send me all your information on your spiritual gifts you think you have received and the experiences that you're doing, and I'll try to pray out and research that area. for you, because that's I think a really good gifting is to understand what, if you want to call it, your opening code for what you think your spiritual giftings are and where you're headed. We have, let's have a look here. Someone asked about specific type of cancers like lymphoma. It doesn't matter what kind of cancer or even autoimmune disease you have. The epigenetics are that you want to start off with malignant arrest, a packet twice a day. Malignant block, at least 2 capsules twice a day. You can go up to higher dosages than that. Ellagic acid, which is from the terminology bulia, it has 300 times higher concentration than a pomegranate to repair DNA. Power C plus high dosages, and we're talking about, like high dose, so we're talking about 9 to 12 capsules, at least 2 to 3 times a day. And I recommend you open the capsules, make a smoothie. Inflamax, it strips off the fibronectin capsule of primary and secondary tumors. Myco D2, which actually turns on your immune system to find cancer cells, with ergothioneine, high-dose Micelle D3, and NutriDefense, which helps to amplify the natural killer cells to go after cancer. I also recommend a ketogenic diet with mild hyperbarics and ozone, and many other therapies that we can add on higher levels in order to fight cancer. So, there's lots of things we can do to help you, even if you're doing conventional care. In fact, if you add these supplements and you're doing conventional chemotherapy, as we have some people who say, look, Doc, I can't afford to do all these alternative things, we'll support you so that you can have a higher chance of surviving the chemo and not getting into medical complications like polyneuropathy or heart failure. For example, if you simply give people that are taking chemotherapy, conventional chemo for breast cancer, our CoQ10 Supreme and CoQ10 ubiquinol, you literally prevent the damage to cardiomyocytes that will eventually, 5 years from now, cause an increased risk of congestive heart failure. So the most common cause of late death in women who survive breast cancer over 5 years is actually heart failure caused by the chemotherapy agents. Isn't that interesting? Let's have a look at some of the other things here. Let's see. Food testing. Sometimes people will say they have a food allergy. I usually recommend the IgG food test. We'll measure IgE and IgG antibodies. You can actually do those tests through Genova Labs and go to directlabs.com, or the test yourself. You can take the test, get into a LabCorp request, or you can get a local mobile blood tech to even come to your kitchen to actually draw the bloods. Very accurate test and very easy, and you can send the results to me and I can tell you what to do in terms of elimination rotation diets. And you don't want to go through the prolonged thing of getting a wrinkle test. I trained under Dr. Ivor Glacier 36 years ago, who's a triple-boarded specialist in doing food allergy testing. And if you do wrinkle testing, RINKLE testing, it takes an entire week to test somebody. It's not like a simple thing in an hour. You have to do serial dilution tests for hundreds of different antigens, and it's not an easy thing, and you can get pretty damn sick. I mean, I went through the test myself, and I was real skeptical until he hit a specific food I was sensitive to, and it literally took me, who at the time was pretty athletic, and put me on the floor. I couldn't stand up. It was like a real eye-opener. So let's have a look here. Now we have... this lady asked for the dangers of flu vaccines, and of course we did a show last week. By the way, you can go through the archives of the Deagle Network, and you can go over there and search with specific search items like vaccines or whatever. You'll find all the shows where that was actually discussed. You can actually go to the Deagle Network and pull out a clip of the half a minute or 30 seconds of a specific thing, and even send it to yourself or your friends. So all those services are available, and they're all free. Just go over and you can search, because I cross-index everything. Let's see here. Protocol for Lyme disease. And, of course, the testing. Firstly, I recommend the iSpot Lyme test for measuring the activated T lymphocytes. And then, secondly, Immunosciences Lab for the full Lyme panel that includes babesiosis and ehrlichiosis. It measures all the antibody markers. Recommend both. In terms of NutriMeds, you want to try our NutriSilver, which is way more powerful than even the Silver 100, which is hundreds of times more powerful than any other silver. This is a new technology that I've developed and I'm going to be patenting. Nutridyne, 15 drops in water 3 times a day, Allison Med, and NutriDefense. Level 2 is a cell detox glutathione, brain power to protect the brain from oxidative stress, CoQ10 Supreme Ubiquinol to protect the brain, Gamma E Plus to stop hydronitroperoxy radical, and Minerals Plus. And then for cognition support, Cognition Plus, CDP choline, uridine monophosphate, or uridine, and the ultrathymine B1, And, of course, level 4 is a ketogenic diet and mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Very, very helpful. And, of course, level 5 is on request. We can deal with specific peptides. If you have peripheral neuropathy, the first thing to think of is remyelination. So we use Neurogen. We also can use Spilkes, which is a myelin basic protein for central and peripheral neuropathy, either MS or other forms of peripheral neuropathy, like ascending Guillain-Barré paralysis. And by the way, this happens in these children that are getting post-viral ascending paralysis syndromes, and we're seeing an explosion of them. One is tied specifically to a certain enterovirus that has a higher rate of it. Omega Supreme Krill, which has astaxanthin to protect the blood vessel walls and remyelinate. Gamma A Plus to stop nitro and hydroperoxy radical. Cell Defense Plus to stop the cytokines that damage the nerves. Cell Detox Glutathione to protect oxidative stress from hydronitric peroxy radical. Cognition Plus for neurotransmitter support and protection of the nervous system. Again, things to protect choline activity, acetylcholine, CDP-choline, uridine thiamine, and uridine monophosphate, and ultrathymine B1. And benign prostate, and this is a big deal. If your prostate's not functioning normally, you're not going to have sex, and you're going to have a higher risk of prostate cancer. Prostate Flow, and we have a new upgraded formula the last few months. At least 1 to 2 soft gels twice a day. I recommend you can take with that to reduce bladder irritability. Swedish flower pollen, 1 to 2 tablets 4 times a day. And Bladder Up, 1 soft gel morning and night. To detox the prostate, Xenoestrogen Detox, at least a capsule twice a day, and BioLVR capsule twice a day. And Vision Max to protect against cancer. And NutriDefense. So prostate's a big deal. It's a very common cancer in males in our society. The toxic pollutants, including fluoridated water and endocrine disruptors, end up down there, as well as heavy metals. So it's a big deal. A really high chance of getting prostate cancer. One lady who actually contacted us about hot flashes, the first thing I recommend is real simple. Take our flash away, or what you call our endocrine disruptor flash away that actually stops that. So the Hormone Synergy, 2 capsules in the morning. You may repeat it if necessary if the hot flashes return. You can also use our hormone therapy, DHEA, pregnenolone, and progesterone. And we have a new supplier for our pumps, which I think will be an improved pump. So those are all still available. So those are all very important. And this is the way to take hormones. Do not take injections. Do not take pills. Do not take little granules. They stick underneath your skin. They last for months. They're all very bad. Sinusitis. You want to get a Sinupulse Elite with Sineware powder, and you want to use the distilled, or we call pure water system water is the best, demineralized. 30 drops of Nutridyne in the chamber, and you want to irrigate 200 mils per side, so you're going to have to change and refill the chamber twice a day. Aller Block to stop allergies, and NutriSilver's nasal spray. 3 drops or 1 spray per 10 pounds body weight 3 times a day. Extremely effective for sinusitis, and it gets rid of all the other nasty little pathogens, because it's usually a pathogen soup, I call it. Sometimes people get concerned when we're shipping international whether or not packages are irradiated. No, they're not. And you want to continue on our protocols. One of the things we tell people, it's not just for a period of time. When you're on a protocol, I want retesting, either conventional or advanced testing, like a QRMA if you get a machine. I strongly recommend a QR machine you can get over time. It's a better deal than having to travel to a clinic. But a metapathia test, we have a clinic in New York, we're working on here in California. That's not yet ready, so I can't announce it until they actually have the device in sight. People have asked questions about the new indium. Our indium works perfectly fine. I'm working on technology to be more advanced, but I'll announce that. Right now, if you want to increase mineral absorption, the indium is very effective in the morning and at night. Let's see. Allergies and outbreak. A lot of people assume they have an allergy to this or that. Unless you do testing, you don't know. Unless you have an immediate allergy, which is real obvious, like the bee stings or whatever. Sometimes people will consult me, and then they will have previously consulted all the doctors, and they just go off on their own. I tell them, look, if you want me to help you, you need to stop all the supplements you take from other people and take exclusively ours, and then report back in 2 to 4 weeks as to how you're doing. If you're taking all kinds of garbage that may not be activated from other providers, naturopaths, etc. How can I tell you if it's going to be beneficial? And especially if I'm going to recommend functional medicine testing like QRMA, blood, urine, stool, or even genetic testing like Prometheus analysis of your 23andMe. So, in other words, don't become a Google genius. Don't second-guess Dr. Deagle thinking somehow you can figure out what has taken me 4 decades to figure out with all my medical training experience and curiosity. It isn't going to happen, okay? So let's face that music. If you're just bouncing around, you're going to waste a lot of time, and you're going to have to come back to me and say, look, it didn't work, and I wasted 6 months or a year, or I got these complications, so don't do that. By the way, when you do a consultation, please, real important, do attach everything as an attachment to the file as PDFs. Do not send me a zip drive. Do not send me physical records like MRIs or CT scans. Don't flood me with tons of records, and just, if the average person needs to purchase 2 units to start with for a consultation, not 1, because it's going to take a lot of time to go over all the records. I get medical legal cases. I had one request last week for a gentleman that wanted to have a wrongful death suit and wanted me to review the records. You need to purchase 2 units and send me all the medical records, and I'll review it and tell you what I can do in that case. But you can't expect a free consultation on something complex like that, especially asking questions about medical records. It's important to understand I don't do a sloppy job here. I actually do a proper medical legal review. They can be admitted to court anywhere in the world. Sometimes we get unusual complaints like fissured tongues and sore tongues, glossalgia we call it, and oftentimes there's infections like yeast infections. Oftentimes there's nutritional deficiencies of B vitamins. So we start off with things to treat the so-called potential infections like our NutriSilver is a very good start. The use of antifungal such as berberstatin, the use of Nutriodine and Allicin Med. For stopping the inflammation of the tongue, I'd recommend CoQ10 Supreme Ubiquinol and the zinc carnosine, which is our gastro heal, will heal the tongue and the fissuring, etc. So as soon as there's B vitamin deficiencies, BioLVR is a very good start on that, and secondary infections or glossalgia that is tied to these other issues. Let's see. Yeah, this is interesting. This person who is a naturopath, and they're having some significant problem with cavities. Cavities are always caused by nanobacteria. They're also caused by acidity of the saliva. And if you're going to heal the mouth, the first thing you want to do is you want to use things to kill off the pathogens. I would start with using a Sonicare toothbrush and rinse your mouth afterward with NutriSilver. I get a HydroFloss device and put Nutriodine in the HydroFloss and floss at least 2 or 3 times a day with the HydroFloss. For the enamel in the tooth, I recommend the full vitamin K2 bone generator, 3 to 6 capsules after the 2 largest meals, Mycel D3, Myco D2, and full vitamin K2, and you should remineralize. You can also use technologies such as the Lumen Photon at setting number NICO for tooth regeneration, and you can also use a micropulse device with the electrodes on either side of the jaws to help regenerate the teeth. So those are all kinds of technology. I'd recommend you get a pan X-ray, a 3-dimensional pan X-ray with your dentist. It'll determine if you have cavitations or changes such as osteoporosis. The membranous bones, what happens is they don't first get decrease in bone density, they actually retract away from the tooth, and actually the jaw becomes smaller. So what you want to do is you want to get a pan X-ray to see if you're getting bone retraction away from the tooth, and you eventually can rupture what's called the sharp A fibers of the tooth in place. So that's what's important to understand. Get a 3-dimensional pan X-ray with your dentist, and if he doesn't have one, there'll be local clinics where it can be done, and it's much better than just a plain X-ray by your dentist. As a pan 3-dimensional X-ray. And do, by the way, see a biological dentist. Don't go see a regular dentist because they're not removing mercury and other amalgam safely. You have to have somebody who knows what they're doing in their office, actually clean of heavy metals like mercury. And they can also do materials testing to see if you have materials intolerance, if you're going to do implants or anything like that too. Let's see. Oh, bad breath. This is something else that's very common. Let's see, bad breath. We talked about this. There's often small bowel overgrowth. There's often factors to deal with periodontal disease. You want to use Nutrisilver and stop small bowel overgrowth with digestive enzymes like digestes and gastrozyme. When we come back, your questions in this final segment, 800-313-9443, or just drop us an email requesting help on your specific condition. I'm available here to help you to get your pathway to wellness. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. Probably after the show today, I'm going to contact Tim Alexander before even tomorrow's show to get an update on it. And in every sphere, we're trying to give you answers and solutions, whether it's your health issues with our NutriMed's services. Again, remember, this is a ministry to provide you with quick answers for how to correct simple problems, whether it's hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, sinus infections, etc., vertigo, tinnitus. And we have those nutraceuticals and technology available for you. We also talk about other solutions, and I think I'm going to contact Tim Alexander because he's done another good update over the weekend in terms of what's happening with the election cycle, the latest release of WikiLeaks, which is now, I think, in the 20s for dumps, the latest release of information regarding the, I call Hallie Weiner Day, which is Mr. Disgraced congressman who's been sexting pictures of his vital body parts to people who are underage, and he could suffer a sentence as much as 50 years in prison for the kind of weird stuff that's involved. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to speculate in what's going on between him and his wife, who had obviously more than just a professional relationship, a probable physical relationship with Hillary Clinton, because she's a bisexual lesbian. But we have a person in Hillary Clinton who really doesn't even take warnings from her daughter regarding, or anybody else around her. And then she surrounds herself with corrupt people like Donna Brazil, who took over the DNC after they kind of booted out the previous director of the Democratic Party. So, America has to clean up its act. It shouldn't have 1.8 million people that are registered to vote that are dead since the 1940s. 2.8 million people registered in multiple states. Voting machines that are old, that the international voting people will say, hey, these could be hacked because of the software. The 16 states where they're in is owned by none other than a subsidiary of Mr. Soros, who's a manipulator of elections. So, we have Obama voting for Comey. I think Obama is covering his own butt because he's lied to us about how soon he knew about the email issues. Again, the emails are just kind of like a thread. The fact is they're covering up pay-to-play in the Clinton Foundation. That's how they accumulated $250 million worth of grants and money that went into the foundation and lots of personal wealth. When they said they came out of the presidency basically with nothing, the only thing they had to sell was influence. And if Hillary does get into power, she's going to sell more influence and put everything up for sale in America. It's really quite gross. We also don't know if there are classified information there she can be blackmailed on from foreign powers or foreign individuals. So we don't know that. And when I heard the number of emails, which is 650,000, I was kind of boggled by the huge number. Obviously, like she used to say, these 33,000 emails were yoga and talk about her grandkids. I don't think so. 650,000, these can't just be sexting ones. They have to be, as they looked at the metadata, serious things that would get Comey in a lot of trouble if he didn't do this now. They're not going to have an answer by Election Day for either Republicans or Democrats, which means this is the death of the Hillary campaign. The polls will come out by Wednesday are going to show that she's on her way out. She needs to figure out what she's going to do post-election to get her health back and maybe repent and get herself on a right spiritual pathway. We need to pray for Hillary and her very disturbed husband. Remember, those who were great sinners can become great evangelists if they turn from evil ways, just like King David, who repented. We'll be back in tomorrow, and of course later, with some videos from the Tim, and tomorrow, Care